back to another Ozlex video. Today I've got something a bit different to what we usually film, and it's just a US election prediction. I know the US 2024 election is coming up next week on Wednesday for us Australian folks, so it's going to be an interesting contest, and I thought I'd just do a little bit of my prediction, have a look at some of the polls, just a quick little video about the US election. So I'll first just start off with seats that we all know. I don't think there's much doubt in the world that are going to be solid one way or the other. So if I just go and fill in all those Democrat seats there, I don't think there's too much concern about how those seats are going to go. I feel like they're fairly certain for the Democrats. And then we'll just fill in the Republican safe seats as well. So these are seats that went by usually 10% or more in the 2020 election. So I'm quite happy to assume that they are going to go the exact same way this time. You can't really persuade or fit the voters that quickly, as much as I'm sure some campaigners would like to think. So if I just fill in those, they're all the seats that I think are fairly certain which direction they're going to go. I mean, there's not too much doubt in my mind on how they're going to go. I'll just fill in Iowa. I think it's fairly confident that Iowa will go red again. It's gone red for a long time now. Trump led it last time by about 8%, and he's leading it in the polls as well. So I don't think there's any indication to that being a different type of contest. So we'll keep Iowa there as likely. If we just come over to Nevada, Nevada has been a big talking point for this US election. I know it's been very interesting. I know the polls are very narrow there. Joe Biden held it last time by upwards of 2%, sorry. But the polls this time are mostly showing a Trump lead. So I think Nevada will be tilt red. Considering the margin of error on the polls and the most recent 4 or 5 polls, it's still pretty in Trump's camp. If we go down to Arizona, that's been another talking point of this election. Trump also leads there, and he's led in every single poll all come tie since earlier in October, and he's leading in the polls by about 2.5%. Biden led Arizona by only 0.4% in the last election. I think it's pretty safe to say that Arizona will be tilt Republican as well. Now, Texas, the only reason I've left Texas out is because there's some demographic changes and the fact that it's not 100% solid red, but the fact that Trump's leading by about 8% in the polls in Texas, and the fact that he carried Texas last election by a comfortable 5.5%, I think we can confidently say that Texas is pretty likely as a Republican win there. Minnesota, it's pretty clear that with Tim Walz being the governor of Minnesota, that will be a fairly easy win there for the Harris ticket. If we come down to Florida, that's another one that used to be, it used to be very marginal. It used to come down to the votes and who was going to win Florida. But over the last 2 or 3 elections, Florida has gone red. It used to be what us Australians call a bellwether seat, or a bellwether state, I suppose, and that means it used to go with the party that won the overall election, but in 2020 it went for Trump. It's leading in the polls for Trump by about 7%. So I think Florida will be likely for Trump as well. Ohio, that's another pretty straightforward one. Trump is leading in the polls there. He carried it last election by upwards of 8%, so that Ohio, I think, will be another, not tilt, likely for the Republicans. We'll go to Virginia. I think Virginia is going to be another straightforward one for the Democrats in Virginia. I know if I just check how they went last time, they carried it by a good 10%. This time the polls have narrowed to about 6%, but I think Virginia will still be a likely hold for the Democrats. So before we get to these eastern, I'll call them eastern swing states, we see the Republicans on 237, the Democrats on 225. So neither party has got to that magic number, 270, but we'll go through these three states now. So we'll start in Wisconsin. If we just have a look at the polling average, Harris is currently ahead by 1.6% in the polls. Trump has won the last two polls, and then they tied in the previous two, and Harris won one in the middle of those two. So it's a very tight contest in Wisconsin. How it went in 2020 with Biden is that Biden led the area by, I believe, 0.6%, so it was very close. It's one of those must-wins for either campaign. But I think just looking at those polling numbers, they've increased from how polling in Wisconsin was from the 2020 election. So I think Wisconsin will tilt Democrat. Now, if we just go over there to Michigan, and we have a look at the polling for Michigan, I think Harris will also be fairly tilt safe in Michigan. She's leading in the polls by 1% there. Biden carried Michigan by about 3%, so it's very small. Trump's led in the past 4 polls in Michigan, but they've only got about 1,000 likely voters. So I think that despite Michigan being still very close, I think it'll be tilt Democrat with Wisconsin. And then we'll just have a look at North Carolina. So North Carolina went to Trump in the last election, and my thing's just frozen on me, sorry. And the polling average for North Carolina has Trump ahead by about 1.5%, with him leading in every poll there since October 25th. So I think we can call North Carolina as a lean there for the Republicans. So, looking at this final result here, we can see that essentially the result of the election rests upon the hands of Pennsylvania and Georgia. So the Republicans there are sitting on 253 seats in my prediction, and the Democrats there are sitting on 250 seats there in my prediction. So if we just have a look at the pure polling in how Pennsylvania is going, it's about 0.7% ahead. If I just have a look at how far ahead Trump was in 2020, so it was about the same in 2020. And as we know, Biden carried Pennsylvania by about 1.2%, and this was about the polling difference. It's going to be very interesting, Pennsylvania. I think that'll be the one to watch. I'll leave that as a toss-up for now, and I'll leave it as third party for now, and I'll come back to it. I'll just quickly go over Georgia. Georgia was won last election by the Democrats by a very slim 0.3%, but Trump now leads in the state by about nearly 2%. He's led in every poll since October 25th as well, so I think Georgia will be tilt Republican. Now, Pennsylvania, all the polling indications in Pennsylvania say that it's meant to be a Democrat win. A Republican win. But my gut feeling on how Pennsylvania has gone previously and the difference between Pennsylvania polling and the Pennsylvania outcome, I'm going to go out on a leg here and say that Pennsylvania will probably be a tilt Democrat. This is what I predict in this very short video on how the US presidential election race will turn out. It's a bit of a combination of gut feeling and polling, particularly how they went in 2020, and just looking at that, a bit of a combination of subjective and some, gut feeling evidence there. So I think that's how that'll go. I think Donald Trump will be good when he picks up Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, but I think that Biden will be able to hold on to those 3 states there, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which are not Biden, sorry, Harris. Kamala Harris will be able to hold on to those 3 tilt their Democrat states. But yeah, overall, I think it would probably end up as one of those situations where we get a 269 or 269. Now, worlds where I can see that being different, I can see potentially Arizona being tilt Democrat. It's becoming more and more unlikely as we go through. There's a lot of Republican support growing in Arizona. So that's one way that Democrats could get over the line. But I think more chances than not, Arizona will be tilt Republican. Georgia, I've heard a lot that Georgia is currently voting in waves for early voting, particularly the demographic that the Democrats are targeting in Georgia. So that's another plausible situation for how Kamala Harris is elected president. It's where Georgia is a tilt Democrat, which is a lot more plausible in my opinion than Arizona. And then for Donald Trump, the only pathway I can see to him winning this election is Pennsylvania being a tilt Republican, which it is on the polling, but my gut feeling tells me that Pennsylvania might not end up being a tilt Republican. I think, despite him spending the last few days in Michigan, I think it's probably going to remain in the Blues basket. But I think Pennsylvania is probably Donald Trump's best hope there for becoming the next president. So it's just a coincidence that my prediction for how the states are going to line up will be 269 to 269. But it's very likely that there won't be a split tie, and one of those states, I'm too used to Australian politics, one of those states will flip the other way to half predicted. So yeah, that's my final prediction there. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be doing a few more Queensland recap videos, and then back to the Australian federal election and Western Australia state election that's coming up. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check the links in my bio for the Facebook and the Twitter, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.